Toleave is an indie game developed by Freaky Creations and is a game that seems to be hidden amongst all the other games that I came across. I remember seeing the first trailer when this game was still in development, and comparing that to the final product, I could see a few changes were made. For example, the most noticeable change to me was the gauge in which you collect these themes that I will discuss more about within this review. But generally, the themes and the gameplay mechanics look like it remained intact into the final version, which was released in the year 2018. And of course, I'm rocking with the PlayStation 4 version, so let's get into it. Toleave's story is the pure definition of being lost within an abstract narrative. Who you play as is a boy by the name of Harm who lives in a seemingly isolated apartment. Something happened to somebody very close to him. I'm not gonna spoil what it is, but yeah, something happens to him to the point where he commences this plan to harness and free souls. He commences his plan by drinking this concoction composed of, if I am correct, and this being the recipe, if you drink this,
gonna have a bad time.
Now, where this game takes place open the doors to many questions than answers. Toleave talks about death amongst other things, and because of this, it kinda made me wonder, does this game take place within the afterlife? Does it all take place within the character's mind? Maybe it's an hallucination, or maybe it's just a dream. The obscurity, along with the fact that many questions may go unanswered, can leave the player to draw their own conclusions. But anyway, back to the story. After drinking whatever this stuff is, he begins to be visited and taunted by this entity he calls the fairy. Along with the fairy, Harm becomes acquainted with this magical door that gives him the ability to fly, and also the power to travel in between dimensions to activate these temples in order to harness souls. Toleave juggles between various artistic directions and designs when it comes to visuals at moments. Some cutscenes have certain three-dimensional components to them, but most of the time, as you can tell by the trailers, majority of the gameplay is just going to be carried out on a 2D scale. From the looks of things, it almost seems as if Toleave was provided with a hand-drawn art approach. When it comes to the use of color, Toleave is bursting with it that makes this game and some of the segments seem psychedelic. The various levels you're going to be flowing through contain a theme to them. Also, the main character during some of the cutscenes show off a bit of emotion with the use of the animation that does a good job of showing off his facial expressions, even though most of the time he just seems drugged out, which could very well be the case considering this game's narrative. But anyway, paying attention and trying to understand this game's world is what brings intrigue. A good example would be how the designs of the temples look like it was based off some type of Mayan or Aztec inspiration. Even at the beginning of the game, when it's giving the player a brief warning about your mental health being affected, it states that everything that you'll see in this game was put there deliberately. So of course the environment will be a character within itself, explaining things that the characters won't. For example, let's take a look at Harm's apartment. It's not the most luxurious of residences, obviously. It's simple and a little junky, but gives insight into Harm's psyche. Looking around and seeing his door barricaded from the inside, the fact that he's laying on a mattress that sits on the floor, and even the main menu, you see flies swarming around him. Using your context clues, you can imply that he's negligent when it comes to his self-care. And looking at his apartment, it just screams solitude, depression, and symptoms of pessimism when it comes to the decadent undertones that pretty much you're going to be picking up once you be reading these letters. You know what? I take that back once you start reading anything in this game. But overall, when it comes to the presentation, it's pretty good. It looks like an acid trip when you're trying to determine what's reality or not. Toleave's game mechanic for the most part is centered around two things. The first will be a simple platformer where the player has the ability to run, jump, and climb up ledges, and the second will be this door. You see, the player has to carefully steer this door in order to reach to the end of every level, and a lot of levels will incorporate one, if not both of these mechanics. But while the player is flying around on his door, what has been spent is something called vibrance. This will be considered the most vital thing to pay attention to when traversing across these levels. If you run out, you are booted back to the room where you must retry the level again. To avoid this, these energy balls you pick up serve as supplements to prolong the amount of vibrance being depleted over time. It's kind of like gas in a car. It's constantly being devoured every time you drive. However, in this game, you're going to be losing it even if you're not quote-unquote driving. So if you want to survive a little bit longer, just collect more. One thing to note is that the different sizes serves as an indication of the quantifiable amount that you will receive once you obtain it. But running out of vibrance is only but one obstacle the player will have to overcome. Another is the door itself. How fast and the altitude in which the player of the door travels is determined by how long the player is holding on to the button that triggers such. Now, there is a small boost option that can give you a burst of speed. However, you can spearhead yourself straight into oblivion if you're not careful. This, if not anything, is the challenging part of playing Toleave. Finding that balance of acceleration while trying not to crash into things is the hard part. Add in the obstacles that the stages provides, and that hypes up the level of difficulty just a tad bit within itself. Oh, and I forgot, if the player connects with corners or anything that is not intended, you'll have to retry that part again. And if you're playing this game, get used to that, please. If you're not good with patience, you're probably going to end up hating this game. Moving forward, the destination is typically the square that is easily recognized by simply looking at the map located at the bottom right side of the screen. Which squares to pay attention to? If you look for the purple, you're always good. And once you land on these purple squares, the player can now enter a door which takes you to another section of the stage. And when that stage is clear, you have the option of selecting a level again or progressing forward within the game's story, which essentially means activating more temples. The sound design of Toleave is pretty good. Majority of the time you're just going to be hearing this door either open or shut, or pretty much when you get hit. Some of the sounds that was hard not to take note of is this loud industrious sound of hearing this alarm go off. And that hunter sound when these changing faces come after you. The music for Toleave was done by twinnouss&elermitaño and features a variety of genres to fit multiple emotions the game evokes. You have everything from alternative, ambient, glitch, and even electronic. Some of the song sounds like a good jam session, like the song Cafarnium. Then you have songs that are atmospheric but unorthodox, like the song Head Rush, where you can hear the electronic glitch I was talking about. For a game like Toleave, the type of music provided fits the bill perfectly. Most songs are somber, and I believe it was made to channel in auditorio form what it's like to probably feel some of the silent storm of emotions that come along with this game's themes. I'll provide links to where you can pick up a copy for yourself if you want to take a listen. This game is the most thought-provoking and infuriating game I've played thus far. The story goes into some very dark territory that I can easily find myself slipping into a depressive mode, where I will be vulnerable to being subjected to an existential crisis just by simply reading these letters, especially the one called A Condemned World. I mean, sheesh. Just reading this and looking at how society is over here in America, I can see a whole lot of harsh truths that can easily make a person pessimistic just from looking at the ugly side of reality. I felt like I was going to need a healthy amount of therapy afterwards. Now, within saying that, there's a reason why when booting up the game, it clearly gives the player somewhat of a warning about the pressure, and if you ever feel like harming yourself, no pun intended, to go seek help. Now for the infuriating part of this game, playing it. What I mean is that I wish there was some quality of life tweaks or abilities that could be added to help in some instances. For example, when holding the acceleration button, it takes a minute for you to pick up speed, but before then, the enemies and your environmental obstacles will have already taken you out. You have to be extra careful when playing this game, and it only gets harder. The presentation looks good with its combination of use of various styles. The sound design is pretty good as well. The music is on point for the most part. As far as the fun factor, it depends on how willing you are not to give up, and manage to maneuver your way through this game as a whole. As cliche as it may sound, consider this game the Dark Souls of its kind. With all that said, I'm going to give this game a 7 out of 10. It's definitely rated correctly for being for people that's 17 and older. So if you're underage, I don't recommend you playing this game, unless you want to be scarred for life. And that'll be bad for everybody because the parents, the media, and politicians will begin to say and do stupid things as if the ESRB don't exist. But that's for a different video. Toleave is now available for PlayStation 4 and Steam for Mac and PC for only $10. Until next time, be safe out there, and peace, y'all.
And don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit up that notification bell, and I gotta go.